my studio and welcome to another edition of Art Success with me, Adelaide Damoah. So today I'm interviewing a really amazing artist by the name of Richardson. And honestly, sometimes it's times like this when I just think, I can't believe that I'm actually working in the same studio complex with artists of this caliber. Ray graduated in 1987 with a degree in fine art from Goldsmiths University. And 1987, I think, was around about the time of Damien Hirst and the YBAs. So he's in that generation of artists. When he graduated in 1987, he went on to work full-time as an artist, and he has not stopped ever since. Amazing. He has exhibited alongside some of the greats. And when I say greats, I'm talking Pablo Picasso, Lucian Freud, Francis Bacon, those kinds of greats. He's in the same exhibitions with these people. Yes. He's also won lots of awards. In 1990, he won the BP Portrait Award Commendation. He's in many international collections, including the Victoria and Albert Museum in London and also the Ashmolean Museum in Oxford. When I went to his studio, he also gave me a signed copy of his book, darling. Here's the proof. From his last exhibition, London Soul, it's called. Bam! To Adelaide, all the best, Ray. It says it. Anyway, Ray has been dubbed the Martin Scorsese of the art world. When you see his work, you'll understand why. That was GQ magazine that said that. Anyway, without further ado, let's get into the interview. Would you be able to summarise your practice for me, please?
I'm just a painter and sort of I don't know, a printmaker as well, but primarily that printmaking's been probably more of a result of being a painter, really. But yeah, I've sort of graduated 1987, so yeah, I've been painting full time ever since.
You've been painting full time since graduation?
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So how did you go straight from graduation to painting full time? Because that's something a lot of graduates have difficulty with.
For me, it was partly to do with the background I came from, which nobody ever did anything like I've done, sort of, even gone into higher education after school. There was a very much a kind of, I guess for want of a better description, a working class approach to it. I kind of sort of thought, right, if I'm going to do this, this is going to be my job, you know what I mean? And I guess if it didn't work out, I maybe would have stopped. When I was at Goldsmiths, I actually did a show in the Greenwich Theatre, and then I actually put in place doing a couple of shows before I graduated, so that I thought, I'm not just leaving and going to sign on, I'm just going to get out there and have some targets to aim for. So that's what I did. I did a couple of small little shows in, places that weren't even galleries, of like restaurants that had a gallery downstairs in a stinky basement. And, and I sold some work, and then it's just snowballed and then got sort of picked up by some people,
Obviously they were artist-led shows, so you put those shows on yourself. Did you find that galleries then approached you, or were you approaching galleries for representation?
I don't know, I think times have changed now, because in the 80s you didn't have the internet for a start, so you didn't have all that kind of access to just being able to fire a load of mass emails that could reach, you had to physically write things, make slides up, and there wasn't sending JPEGs. So it was a mix of, I guess, you got offered things. I mean, I got offered to be in group shows when I did my degree show. So yeah, you kind of tried to suss them out and tried to take the ones that you thought, well, that looks interesting, I wouldn't mind being in that. And then sometimes you get invited to be in shows where there were a couple of well-known artists, say at that time. You'd think, well, that's really good company to be with. So you jump at it, well, I did. So it's a kind of mix of both, really, approaching people. But then I met up with a guy who's actually a really successful print dealer now, who is a publisher, and he's got his own gallery up in Museum Street. But I met him when we were like in our 20s, and he kind of was representing me a bit, but we were both fresh kids and we sort of didn't know what we were doing, really. We were having a laugh, but we were just trying to get along. And fortunately, he's gone on and been really successful with his own gallery and publishes a lot of well-known people. And he actually published me down at the print studio down on site here, which was great for the print studio, Thames Barrier. And yeah, through him, I kind of got gallery representation sort of thing. And then I've kind of been represented by that same gallery on and off ever since, really.
What gallery is that?
It's suppose art up in Mayfair. There's a guy that I've met in recent times, who I've met before, who gave, because I was at St Martin's before Goldsmiths on Foundation, and he gave a talk saying that only 3% of us, this was the first day when I was 18 at St Martin's, he said there's only going to be 3% of you in 10 years time doing this. And my attitude, me being me, was like, well, I'm going to be one of that 3%. So I think I always had that drive. I don't want to sound big-headed. I don't think it's big-headed. It's just I just had a bit of self-motivation, which I know everyone hasn't got, but it's really important to me.
I think drive and ambition is, especially in the art game, that's the only thing that's going to keep you going. Like that guy said, 3%, that's nothing.
No.
But the people who keep going are the ones who end up in that 3%.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, I mean, whether that's by talent or luck, or I think there has to be some kind of drive as well. And I like the way you called it the art game as well, because that's what I call it.
Can you remember the first time you sold a painting and what that felt like?
Selling a painting, I can't remember the first one. I remember when I did the show at the Greenwich Theatre, which is down in Greenwich. It used to have a gallery space there, and I got given a show there while I was a second year at Goldsmiths, I think. Yeah, and that was quite amazing, because I think at that time I sold, I can't remember how many, but maybe, so let's say there was 20 paintings there, but I probably sold about 6 or 7.
Wow.
And I was still a student, and it weren't like big money or nothing, but it was still just a real buzz, you know what I mean? You're thinking, God, people do want to buy them. I don't care what anyone says, because there was a lot of that attitude when I was at art school of like, it's not about selling, it's about doing it, which it is. But I not hardly met one artist, even the ones who are right up there, they all love it when they sell work. I think they're a liar if they say they're not. If they're not excited by selling work. I think everybody is, doesn't matter what level you're at. I think it's really important. I think it's good for your soul as well, because it makes you think, well, I can carry on doing it, or there's people taking notice of what you're doing.
I agree. Yeah, it's really important.
Yeah.
What would you say has been your biggest challenge to date as a professional artist?
In what respect?
Just in the sense that as professional artists, we're not living the average day-to-day life of the average person who just gets up and goes to work every day and gets a solid income coming in, that kind of thing. So really what I'm trying to get to is, what's the worst thing that's happened to you career-wise, and then how did you pick yourself up and keep going?
I guess one of the worst things is something that I really learnt is getting commissioned to do stuff. And then I guess you have to learn that you've got to start doing stuff like taking deposits, because I did a really big commission for somebody who had commissioned me to do some work through a dealer, and it all got paid. He was happy with the commission, but then he commissioned more work, and me being me and really trusting sort of went, don't worry about the deposit. And spent 2 years working on these paintings, in amongst other stuff. And then the guy just at the end of it just didn't pay, and he stiffed a load of people for money. So I wasn't the only one who got affected. But I guess I learned a big lesson from that you got to take deposits off of people and stuff, which sounds really crap when you think you're dealing with art, because you sort of like to think if somebody says they want something, there's a bit of trust involved as well. So you don't want to be going, well, actually, before I pick up a pencil, I want 30% in my bank, you know what I mean? So that's not a terrible knockback, but it is when you're, say, maybe relying on that money to just pay your bills like everyone else. Because I think what you said is really pertinent, the fact that, it's precarious being an artist or a maker or whatever, because you're doing stuff, you value what you're doing. And I know, and I realise that there's people in everyday life who've got jobs, and they've got jobs that they get the sack or made redundant. And so we're not like special people being artists, but we are in a more precarious position, because we don't have a regular income unless you've got a job to support your practice. I just think knockbacks of money, it doesn't matter who you are, because you sort of are maybe thinking, well, that means I've got my studio rent sorted for 6 months, or it means I can pay my mortgage for 3 months, and then all of a sudden you get a knockback and you think, okay, I'm not skint, but I've got to find that money from somewhere else, because I can't do this and that. I understand, there can be a bit of give and take, but I do think that people, to realise that people ain't just slaving away in their studios to sell stuff, whatever they're doing and whatever level they're at, for nothing, you know?
Yeah. How do you deal with people like that?
I guess it just comes with experience. You can start sussing out people who are going to mess you about more. That's what I've found. You just have to play it by ear.
You have a lot of
really significant achievements under your belt. A lot of things that there's a lot of artists who would kill to have some of the things that you've achieved.
I have killed.
What would you say was the one that you were the most proud of, and how did you achieve it?
I think in really recent times, actually, and it's not like I feel like I'm on Graham Norton or something here, but no, I've got a book over there of a show that I was in. It got curated by a couple of museums. This show called Reality, which was it ended up at the Walker Art Gallery, which is a beautiful big Victorian museum up in Liverpool. So I was in this big museum show there, but it was a sort of survey of British figurative painting, and initially it was up in Norwich at this really beautiful Norman Foster contemporary sort of building. And I went up with my wife, and so we went up for the opening on a Friday night, and there were people like, well, you know, I will name drop, but it was like Lucian Freud and Francis Bacon were in the show, and David Hockney, and amongst others. There was loads of, you know, great artists in it. George Shaw, who was nominated for the Turner Prize a couple of years ago, he was in the show. So I went up, and you had to kind of go down this spiral staircase. They did a speech before the opening, and you went down to the spiral staircase into the gallery. It was like a really big spiral staircase, not like some really weird 70s one. But and then as I went down the stairs, I came down, and there was the first painting I saw was a Francis Bacon, and then I turned left and looked, and then there was a Lucian Freud, and then as I looked round again, there was one of mine.
Oh,
and then
my God.
And that was the first time I'd ever had that sort of, you know, properly really understood the hairs on the back of your neck standing up. That was like, wow, this is a bit of recognition. You're in like really good company here, you know what I mean? I can't do any higher, I don't think, than being a sort of collective show with like Bacon and Hockney and Freud, and you know, they're all artists that I admire.
How did you get that show?
I just got asked if it was being curated by the people up in Norwich, and it's at the University of East Anglia where the gallery is. So they approached me and they said, oh, we're thinking about curating this show of British figurative painting. I think it's a really hard job, because I think there was other artists who probably should have been in it as well, even above me, but it was their kind of choice. But yeah, they said, we'd like you to be in it. Yeah, it did feel like you'd kind of arrived a little bit, I guess.
Yeah.
How would you define success in the art world?
Well, I guess being in a show like that, from a kind of recognition point of view, that's a kind of good mark of success. I mean, the fact that you can make a living at it, I guess in some people's eyes, that's a success as well. I mean, I know plenty, I'm sure you do, I know plenty of artists who are really good artists, but they don't make a fortune at it, but they're still really good artists, but they keep on doing it. And so I guess, you know, you can measure that as a success for some people, that they keep on going and sort of, you know, and they're true to their faith and stuff. You just keep on keeping on. That's one of my favourite sayings. You know, keep going with it. And, you know, like you say, you always get knockbacks. It doesn't matter where you are. I don't want to sound like a guru or something, but you got to try and get the positives out of all the negatives.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I'm not someone who goes to like hippy dippy talks and that, but I just sort of think you got to keep your head up and just keep going. And that's tough, I know, but that's the only way to do it, is for me anyway.
Yeah. So by your definition, do you feel like you're successful at the moment?
Yeah, I'm doing all right. Yeah, nice. I think the thing that's really good is that I actually enjoy what I do as well. It's like I'm feeling like I'm making work. I'm having to make work to please other people. I make it, and if they don't like it, then I'm not saying that's too bad. Maybe it is, maybe I'm stupid, I don't know, but I kind of do what I want to do on the whole, really. And I think if you can do that, then I guess that's a kind of, that happiness is a kind of success in a weird way, you know what I mean? It's like, if you're enjoying it, then it's got to be all right, hasn't it?
Yeah. In your wildest dreams, what is your biggest, most ambitious dream for your work?
And I'm not touting myself, but I probably am. I don't know. But no, the guy George Shaw, he's just finished the residency at the National Gallery in London, and the National Gallery is, I don't give a monkeys what anyone says about Tate Modern and all that. Yeah, it's a fantastic gallery, Tate Modern. I don't like everything that's there. And there's other great places to see art in London all over the shop. It's like one of the best things about the city, really. But I love the National Gallery. I just absolutely love it because it's free. And if you're going up to town and you've got 10 minutes, I'll dive in there really sharpish. And I know things that I can just go and have a look at one painting for 10 minutes and that's me, I'm sorted for a week or something. I'd love to do the residency at the National Gallery because I'd be like a kid in a sweet shop. Yeah. But yeah, like I say, this guy George Shaw just did it, and I don't know him personally. So yeah, I'd love to meet him and say, God, what's the score on that then? Whose palm do I have to? No, not really. But I'd love to do that.
What advice would you give to young artists wishing to follow in your footsteps?
Don't do it. No. Sorry, that sounds like something my dad would say. But well, when we had open studios here last year, and there was this kid who come in. He weren't a kid. I mean, you know what I mean? He's a kid related to me, but he was probably like mid-20s or something like early 20s, and he came in, and it was at a time I had quite a few people in here I'd been talking to. He'd been ear-rolling in to me, talking to people, and then he waited till it all cleared out, and then he went to me, "Oh, you're from round here, aren't you?" Like that. And I went, "Yeah." I goes, "Yeah, I was born in Woolwich and grew up at Woolwich Dockyard." And he said, "Yeah." He goes, "And you've like done all this?" And then I said, "Well, yeah." He goes, "Oh, it's brilliant." And he just said to me, he was studying art and he'd grown up in Woolwich himself, but his mum had moved him out of Woolwich because he was getting into a lot of trouble, let's say, you know what I mean? But he kind of got out of trouble, and then he was studying art, and I think the best thing was, it was almost like, I can't give advice, but I think things like the open studios here, for someone like him, he went to me, "Oh, this just gives me like a real buzz," because he goes, like, "You're from around here and you've done it, you're doing it and you're painting." And he goes, "It makes me think, you know, it's achievable." So I guess, you know, if we bring it to the open studios here, I guess for like anyone who's younger, it's things like this are a good opportunity to maybe come and see people actually making work and doing whatever they're doing, whether it's painting or jewellery making or whatever, you know. If they can actually physically see something rather than, you know, get some kind of advice, it makes them sort of see, well, there's something that's attainable there, sort of thing. It's kind of like just actually seeing things, because you can tell people stuff until you're blue in the face. You can go, "Oh yeah, we'll keep practicing every night and do a drawing a day." I mean, that is important as well, but I think, yeah, try and get out and see things like open studios. Go to galleries and just feed your soul with seeing stuff. Because I remember when I was 13 or 14, I was more interested in playing football, but then I suddenly discovered, like say, the National Gallery, and I'd go up to the National Gallery with mates from round here who were a bit like-minded, who I did play football with, but we'd go up and see art exhibitions, and I'd never been to a gallery in my life. For my family, never did anything like that, so it has to be a bit of self-discovery of things, but then once you got it, don't let go of it. That's what I think.
Thank you.
Hi. Thanks very much for joining me for another edition of Art Success with Ray Richardson today. He is taking part in Open Studios this year, which is between the 2nd and the 5th of June 2016. So if you'd like to see his work in person and to discuss his work with him, get some personalised art advice if you're an up-and-comer and you want to speak to a real-life working artist who is actually really doing big things, then do come along between the 2nd and 5th of June at Second Floor Studios. He's in the Telegraph Building, studio number 121. All the details are below in the description box. Please do subscribe to my channel, because by subscribing you get to keep up to date with the latest Art Success interviews and art studio vlogs and art exhibition vlogs. So until next time, take care.